Well, I don't know if you use social media. I don't know if you believe in social media. I don't know if you think that social media is the death knell of the world and the worst creation and invention since humanity. But school districts are pushing back right now. And so, Caroline, I know that you're a younger person and you probably love all things social media. You probably think they're the best thing since sliced bread. Do you think social media is the best thing since sliced bread?
I think it has issues for sure.
Okay. So, Caroline has not taken the bait on this one, but school districts are suing social media companies and they're taking them to court. So, today I'm going to break down why are they suing them? What do they think the effects of social media are? So what do the school districts want from these social media companies? And I'm also I pulled up some studies to get into the hard research, not just Brian Stevens' personal opinion of social media, which, yeah, you know this. I'm going to share that too. It's just one person's opinion, but we're going to talk about the science. We're going to talk about the data here. Okay. So, across the entire nation, this is a lot of states, and I'm going to break this down, is there's a fight with big tech. And public schools are suing many social media giants like TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat, YouTube. Is there, Caroline, I know I'm going to lean on you a little bit here. Are there other social media things that I didn't say X, formerly known as Twitter, right? Are there any other ones that I don't know about? TikTok, Instagram?
I mean, yeah, there's some other smaller platforms.
Okay. Other ones. So they're going after the big ones. Okay. I got it. So, and they're saying, this is the claim. And I wrote this down. I got to read it, so I don't want to mess it up. They're saying that these platforms knowingly harm students, not unintentionally, but intentionally, knowingly harm students, and that schools are the ones being forced to clean up this mess. And I would say not just the schools, but also the parents and also society. So if these claims are true, that social media harms students, lots of people having to clean up the mess. It's, you know what I equate this to? I equate this to like picking up garbage on the side of interstates. I think that we should have a tax on fast food restaurants, and we should use that exact tax. I don't sound like a conservative right now, but I'm not really big into massive amounts of taxing. But I will say this. I don't like garbage. I don't like litter. And most of the litter along the interstate is from fast food restaurants. Like, look, people just chunk it out their windows, and I don't know if they should get the death penalty or not, but I think we should be open to that. Is they throw and it's fast food. So maybe the fast food companies that know their stuff is going to be tossed, do they knowingly know it's going to be tossed? I don't know if they know knowingly, but it certainly is tossed out. So maybe that's a bridge too far in this analogy. But the question is does social media knowingly harm students? And then who is left with picking up the bill? Because right now it's not the social media companies that are raking in the money. They're raking the money. Meanwhile, our public schools are suffering. Okay, so let's talk about the first major claim. This was in 2023, which in one way sounds like a long time ago, but it's less than 2 years ago from the time of when this lawsuit happened. And it was Seattle Public Schools. And since then, 200 more districts have either filed or joined similar lawsuits. Okay, now let's put that into contention. In the nation, there's about 14,000 districts. So this is not 10% of them yet, but it's growing, right? So 200 plus districts. And here are the claims. Social media companies design addictive platforms with features like infinite scroll, autoplay, and targeted content. All right. So they design addictive platforms. 2, they design their designs. I'm trying to read this. I'm sorry. It kind of reads very technical, right? But they design and exploit adolescent psychology, leading to increased anxiety, depression, cyberbullying, and suicidal thoughts. And then 3, schools are now having the burden of these outcomes academically, financially, and emotionally. We're going to break these down, but before I read all this stuff, let's use a little common sense. Let's just use a little common sense. Let's forget about the studies for a second. Are these platforms designed to be addictive? Hell yes, they are. I don't need a degree in psychology. I don't need a law degree. I can just be a regular human being, and absolutely they are designed to keep people on them. That's how they make their money. So that is a duh. Of course they're designed to be addictive. Gambling's designed to be addictive. That's how we keep people on. Fast food's designed to be addictive. Sodas are designed to be addictive. That's how they keep the buyer buying. Okay. I'm not the judge and jury, but I've already ruled. I need a gavel. Can I get a gavel? I think that would be funny, right? Okay, so I'm going to do a gavel with my hand. Yes, they design addictive platforms. We don't need to have a long conversation about this. And I'll tell you what, anybody that argues that they're not addicted to platforms is a lunatic. You're a crazy person. You're a crazy person. All the algorithms are there to increase your dopamine, right? I'm not going to dig into that. The earth is not flat. The sky is up, the ground is down, and they're addicted to platforms. Okay. I feel a little judgy right now, right? Okay. Do they design it explicitly to target adolescents leading to anxiety, depression? That's going to be tough to prove. That's going to be where the rubber meets the road. Do they design it which leads to increased anxiety, depression? Okay. And then the third thing they're absolutely going to have to prove is that they have a financial burden. So, this is going to be a more fun topic than I thought, I think. All right. So these districts are reacting in real time. And here is what districts are doing to respond right now with social media. Maybe some of it can be tied back into COVID, depression, anxiety. They're going to have to separate that out. But we know that school districts are having to provide increased mental health support. That's a financial burden on them. So many districts, and this is in the lawsuits, have doubled or tripled their mental health staff. Now, what is a school charged with doing? Let's never forget that. Training the babies. You got to train the babies. Well, if they have depression and anxiety, they're not showing up to school, you can't train them. So they're having to address this. And one California district actually has crisis rooms. It doesn't surprise me. It comes from California, by the way. Sorry, California, but that is like the hippies. That's where the hippies came from. But I'm not a hippie, but crisis rooms, right? In the military, we had some quiet rooms and things like that. That might be some of the same stuff. But one California district has a crisis room in the middle and high schools to stabilize students having panic attacks and breakdowns in school, and they attribute that to online drama, social media drama. And they're having to bring in external therapists. So now they have to have space for them. They have to bring in therapists for them. That's all a big demand. And then certainly classroom disruptions. And I don't think it surprised people that children act out, children need discipline, children will disturb classrooms. The issue is, does social media compound that? Does it add to that? And teachers have reported since social media, according to these districts, that the students are exhausted, they're disengaged, they're distracted. Boy, that seems probably like that's been the way for 200 years, but are people staring at their phones too much? Yeah, they're not staring at their phones in high school, staring at stock prices. They're on social media. All right. Maybe they're not like texting with their friends. They're on social media looking at what their friends are posting. So we know that they're distracted and they're using their phones and they're addicted to it, right? But I don't think there's a lot of argument on that. And this is compounded because the kids are doing it at home also, and late night screen usage. And then, of course, bullying. And look, face-to-face bullying is one thing. Online bullying is a whole nother thing. And I've broken that down in a few speeches I've had. But certainly online bullying, because you can almost remain anonymous or it feels distant, is compounded. I think any jury would know that online bullying has gone up, right? I'm going to sound bougie. In my latest book, I talk about these type of characters that are in the world that we have to deal with. And we know that online you have trolls, right? They just go out there and try to stir the pot because they love drama. They probably watch soap operas every day. And they just love the drama. And that's a bit of online bullying too, right? All right. So schools have begun to implement stricter phone policies, Wi-Fi filters, and rolling out training for staff on like how to manage all this stuff. The issue is who pushes back on regulating phones. And there's some districts that have you got to put your phone in a locked case. You can't take it out. You have to leave it in your locker. Who pushes back? The parents. The same people that need their child to learn and become productive members of society and move out of their houses are the ones pushing back on this. That's the one thing I can't get. And I remember my daughter's only a few years out of high school, and we have really good friends, and the mothers were like, and I didn't really talk about it with the dads, I guess. They may have thought the same thing, but in this case, I can only remember these mothers, just two of them, good buddies of ours. We were at dinner and like, my daughter's going to have their phone. My son's going to have their phone. They have to have their phone. I'm like, what do you mean they have to? And they got upset. It's a safety issue and all these other things. I'm like, man, it's a control issue is what it is. You want to know where they're at. You want them to be able to contact you, video if anything goes wrong. But the issue is, does it get in the way of learning? Okay. So so the bullying issues have really gotten out. Now, some districts are being very diligent with having a lot of, I think this is a pro tip for you, holding a lot of workshops and community engagements events to explain the signs of addiction, to explain the signs of cyberbullying, to get into how this works. And they're trying to launch phone-free days, school-wide challenges to try to break up the habit that we've all formed. Now here's what the science says on developing a habit, a good habit, and breaking a bad habit. It's around 14 days. So an intermittent day mixed in is really not going to break the bad habit. I love the effort. I love the challenge. I think it's a great way to start. It's not really going to break an addiction according to most research, right? So it's a great way to go and to educate people. And then maybe they figure out that they spend one less day with this phone. They're going to survive. They're going to be all right. They're going to be all right. And now the districts are kind of, the whole point of this conversation is they're actually suing to try to get more resources to help combat this. And they're even getting insurance, and some carriers are now requiring, this is crazy, some insurance carriers are requiring former digital risk policies that deal with how to deal with that deal with cyberbullying and phone technology and all this stuff. So I guess another tip is talk to your insurance companies. You know, if your school district, you're in that space, make sure that you're getting the right policies to protect yourselves. And now districts are, of course, having to budget for legal counsel, crisis response team, anxiety therapist, and all these other things, which is creating a burden. So is it real? Is it fantasy? Is it a money grab? Carolyn, is this a money grab from schools? Do they just want to try to get in the pockets of these social media, these poor social media schools? When I was young, we were into video games. Oh, and Dungeons and Dragons had come out. It was a game. It was like a board game with dice. It was just a game. They're just games. People were losing. Oh, you're going to go to hell. You're going to have Satan. Satan's involved in these games. And so is it just another witch hunt? Is social media another witch hunt? Because I will tell you right now, I was not addicted to video games. I was absolutely addicted to video games. I would never waste my days and nights playing video games. I still play video games. They are totally awesome and great, and I have to limit myself. I remember I had a buddy that we were in our 20s. I was in law school at the time, and he was on the radio. He was in media business, and his wife called me. They were newlyweds. You got to come over. You got to drive over. I hadn't seen them in a while. It was a couple hours away. And I drove up and she goes, he sits and he plays a game called Final Fantasy. And he sits there all day long, every free moment. I can't get him away from it. Please help. I go, really? So I went to his house and I'm hanging. I hadn't seen the guy in a couple months and he is playing the game while we're talking and I'm letting this go for a couple minutes. Don't forget I'm an old soldier. And I finally said, what in the double HE, double hockey sticks or whatever are you doing? He goes, what do you mean? I go, you're hanging out with your brother. What are you doing? Well, I'm trying to get this level. I went and unplugged the computer. And he looked at me, what are you doing? I go, you've lost your stinking mind, dude, and you need help. And we got one of two ways to do this. You're going to start paying attention to your wife. You're going to curve this, or you and I are going to have a fisticuffs right now. We actually got a little bit of fisticuffs. It's fine long term, but it feeds the dopamine receptors and it makes you feel like you are doing something awesome and gaining, improving in life. And people want that. I think it was Socrates who said, every human should get up and do something every day. The birds get up. I think this was the phrase. The birds get up and do something. The bees get up and do something. And so shall we. And if we don't do something productive every day, we get depressed. We get sad. So people will fill in this void of they're not getting everything they want out of life. They're not completing everything they'd like. They fill it in with other things. Yes, they can fill it in with drugs as a masking agent. Yes, they can do it with computer games to get that dopamine. Look at me. I got to the next level. It's all fantasy, but it feels real. People do it with gambling. Do people do it with social media? And that's the question. All right. I got to put back on my glasses. I got a few studies. We're going to break this down. All right. So the lawsuits are backed in some hard scientific studies. So JAMA, this is one of the first studies in 2025. It tracked 4,300 students aged 9 to 10 over 4 years. So let's take this in into context because I want everyone that's with me on my team, I hope you all on my team, to be suspect of studies. I want you to question surveys. I want you to question polls. Anything that's non-scientific is really dangerous because science should prove and disprove even your own thoughts. And studies have got to be big and they've got to be very narrowly focused. And there's a lot of other parameters. So if I see that a study is bad, I'll point out, at least from my perspective, right? So 4,300 kids over 4 years in a very tight band, that feels good to me. That feels, it wasn't 40 kids and it wasn't over a year, right? Certainly over 10 years would be better. 10,000 would be better, but 4,300 kids, pretty good. And so this is a good psychiatric study. All right. So what do they find? They find that compulsive screen time, not total screen time, okay, was linked to 2 to 3 times increase in suicidal attempts, or they call it ideation, but it's really like thinking of suicide, like having suicidal thoughts is the way that most of us would talk about that, right? Having suicidal thoughts, right? So the takeaway from this study is that when kids stop scrolling, even when it's hurting them, it's called a clinical addiction. It's not just a bad habit. So it's not a bad habit. So I guess when I said breaking a bad habit was probably the wrong terminology a minute ago, right? It is an addiction and they feel depressed when they miss it and they feel bad even when they do it. Now, before I get into these other studies, it's funny. Let's forget about the science. I got 2 more studies to get into, I think. Don't we all just kind of innately know that we should put down those phones and we should take a walk outside and we should call and talk to our friends? I think we all know it, but it's hard. I know I should not eat French fries, but French fries are good. I think that smokers know they shouldn't be smoking. I think they'll argue with you. Well, the studies say that it's fine. And I think people will argue their way into doing whatever they want to do. Humans argue their way into doing whatever it is that they want to do. We typically don't use logic to make a decision. We use emotion, and then we find the logic to justifies our opinion. It's the reverse of the way it should be, but we're humans. We all do it. I do it. If I want to buy a car, I'm going to go buy that car. I'm going to say, well, honey, the resale value of my older one was lowering and this car is safer. I'm going to come up with a bunch of logical reasons after I made the emotional decision. I think that the science, again, Caroline, would say about 15% of the people do the opposite, where they're very I'm going to use facts to lead my decisions. They're typically in the engineering fields, but not me, man. I'm led by my emotions, and I try to justify it after the fact. So I think we all emotionally know social media is bad and we all know we should take a break. You always say, I'm taking a break from social media. We don't have to take a break from being awesome. Do you have to take a break from being awesome? No, because it's awesome. Do you have to take a break from eating salads? No, you need to take a break from eating, 8 pounds of ice cream at night, right? You need to take a break, not from exercise, but from sleeping 18 hours a day. So you take a break from social media because you know it's a problem. So don't act like social media companies, it's not a problem. Okay, 2 more studies. Am I too preachy today? This upsets me greatly. I cannot stand it when I go out to have a meal face-to-face with somebody on their phone. I just get up and leave now. And I go, what are you doing? I go, well, you're clearly having a better relationship with whoever's over there than me. I came here to be with you. And we have a rule at the company. We have to stack our phones. We put our little phones on the table, and we set the tables down, right? And whoever touches their phone is supposed to pay for the tip, right? So, everybody wants me to pay for the tip, so they don't touch their phones. And that's been a relatively effective strategy to keep people off it because there's a detriment to it. At home, we find ourselves together so far. I think we all get it. So I think that once again, we have to acknowledge the fact this is a problem and we know it. So let's stop masking it, right? Okay, let's talk about a few more studies, all right? So a UCSF study followed 12,000 tweens. So think not teenagers, right? I think that's what that means. For 3 years. 3 years is pretty good. And they found that this was their finding, was that the increased social media use predicted future depression symptoms. Now, I don't think it could say it was a causation, but there was definitely a correlation. And I think that what the school districts are going to have to prove that it was a direct cause, not just it happened to at the same time. And one of the biggest issues with these studies is going to be that COVID was kind of happening at the same time as social media. So was it COVID? Was it social media? Was it both? Was it a percentage? And the courts are going to be charged with trying to break all that down. But the study did say that depression rose by 35% of those tweens that had daily social media time from 7 to 74 minutes. Now, 7 minutes. Man, I have no social media on my phone. None. I don't have Instagram. I don't have Facebook. Caroline, I got to get Facebook back because a lot of people post races on Facebook. But I had Instagram on for a while. And I got to tell you, I would do it for a heck of a lot more than 7 minutes. And I'm not a tween, right? I mean, I would, I mean, 7 minutes. I mean, what is 7 minutes? It's nothing. 74 minutes. I mean, they're on the phones for hours. Hours, and I guess 74 minutes is an hour. Somebody's like, Brian, 74 minutes is technically 14 minutes more than an hour. Yes, but I'm like plural, right? It's so easy. And so 7 minutes is super easy, but I would want to dig into this study a little bit more, I think, because 35% was that same of anyone so any social media use at all. Wow, that's a little surprising to me. All right. So now the U.S. Surgeon General Advisory, and this was in 2023, put out, they warned that 3 hours a day of social media doubles the risk of anxiety and depression in teens. And most teens have already exceeded that average anyway. So I got another study that says on average, they're on the phone for 3.5 hours a day, not 7 minutes or 74, but 3.5. And that doesn't surprise me. It concerns me, but maybe it should surprise us. Okay. And now we have, I kind of took a big general conglomeration of a bunch of different studies so that you're not having to listen to me for 3 days about this subject. And I found really dozens of studies that consistently link social media to worse mental health outcomes, including a higher suicide rate in users. That alone got us to put warning labels on cigarettes. That alone, depression, high anxiety, cancer risk. So the Surgeon General puts out warnings on things that cause pain. When are we going to have a warning on social media? By the way, I don't know if the warning stopped anybody from smoking, but it's a start, right? And so there's so much research. And if you got your blinders on, be like, no, we can manage. It's fine. It's great. Nobody bullies. Everybody learns and grows. I've had these arguments with people, and Caroline, I've had these arguments with employees or whatnot, friends, we're out at dinner and they have the fun. I go, but let's be, I go, you know that's cause I'm pretty pointed. I'll be like, that's not good for you, right? And they're like, no, I really get a lot of good information out of, I get a lot of good self-help stuff and studies. Yeah, dude, I bet you do, man. And I look on YouTube. Okay. So I said, I don't have social media. I do. I lied. I forgot that YouTube is social media. Okay. I had a YouTube problem. Hi, I'm Brian Stevens. I'm not being a smart. I'm Brian Stevens. I have a YouTube problem. I try to keep it just at night after dinner, but then I might stay up too long scrolling through YouTube, and I hate those shorts. They do these little shorts, and that's what's addictive. Before I would really find interesting articles on history. Okay, bike racing. Okay, I like to sound like, I look at history and farms. I do a lot of those things, man. But yeah, I watch a lot of bike racing and people rebuilding cars. I love that. Outdoor survivals. Yeah, so that's just a nasty little fad I've got. But the little scrolls, it's so, oh my God, I know it's dangerous. So at least I know it. And so if you got somebody that's just, Brian, the earth is flat and there's nothing you can tell me that it's not, don't debate with them. They're crazy. So Brian, social media is the greatest gift ever and it's only does good things. Don't even talk about them. I don't want to talk to you. Stop following my channel. Don't listen. Go away. Sorry, I can't handle that kind of ignorance. I just can't. Okay, so let's talk about what happens if schools don't respond. Okay, so leaders, here's what happens. Who are the effects if you don't? Well, the studies will say that more students will disengage, have learning disabilities, and social anxiety, which will cause, disastrous effects long term. Chronic absenteeism increases, especially among students that are really involved on online, that are the victims of online bullying. This is probably true of people that are addicted to video games or alcohol or anything else. They're not going to come to school. You're going to lose your legal exposure. Schools could even be sued by the parents. Maybe the same parents that are telling you they have to have the phones. Who knows? Sorry. By parents if they ignore the threats and fail to act. So you have a duty to act. And then you're going to have staff burnout. You're going to lose staff because this just recently happened to us. We had kind of a bad manager 2 years ago, and we kind of knew it, but we were hoping we could get it fixed and coach and train and all this stuff. And finally they had to go away. Well, other people had left because of this bad manager. So if you don't deal with the problem, you're going to lose talent. And it's not going to be the worst teachers and the worst staff. It's going to be your best and brightest. Your best and brightest teachers and staff will leave to go to a school that's dealing with this so they don't have to be handcuffed and constantly have to deal with kids that are addicted to social media. They want you as leaders to address this. And your good ones want you to address it. So take care of your team at the same time you're taking care of your students. If not, the good people are going to leave. The good people always leave quietly, and you're always stuck with the bad team members when you fail to act on a known problem. Okay, so let's talk about, I'm going to wrap this up. I'm going to talk about 5 things that you can do, right? Think about joining these coordinated lawsuits. Upfront costs is kind of covered a lot of this stuff. So, but I would see about joining an ongoing lawsuit. Find out what's going on. Talk to your associations. Schools are membered all these associations. See if they're involved. You need to start documenting the damage. Okay. So, I know that we're really good into tracking. It's really hard though, but are you having to hire more support people to handle anxiety? Are you having more disciplinary records tied to depression, anxiety, risk of suicide? Start to track all that stuff because that's building your evidence, building your record. You need to have updated policies on what you're going to do about this, and you need to train your staff and your team members on what you're doing. Now, that's awesome for 2 reasons. One, you're letting your good team members, bad notes, letting them know you're going to address this. And that gives them hope that you're going to actively address this and take care of it, which is awesome. Okay. And you actually need to start taking care of it. Even without lawsuits, you need to start handling this because the studies show it's a problem. Start to educate your parents. All right. Because they need to know how much of a problem this is. And maybe some of them are busy and aren't aware. Now, I didn't say I'm done with people that are unaware. It's our job to educate them. Okay. I am done with people that want to combat obviousness. They are aware, they've looked at the research and they are blind to it. But if they don't know, it's our job to educate them. Okay. And then we have to push for state policy changes to help you with all these different issues. And I think that those things together, addressing on the front with policies, get involved in lawsuits, hold the social media companies accountable. That way you have funds to fight this while you're also trying to limit it. So address by trying to limit it. Long-term, you've got to get some money to handle all these lasting effects. And this is going to be a bear. I'm in it with you. Let's go. All right.